Hey guys, welcome back to the JP Cormier channel, the home of string theory, uh, all of my live performances now that the pandemic's happening, and also the home of my autobiography, Life and Music, which occurs every Monday. String theory occurs every Wednesday at 7 p.m., and live show, question and answer show. And this video here is a follow-up to truthfully, one of the things that actually spurred on this channel early during the pandemic. Everybody knows me. If you don't know me, I'll just tell you quickly that I am a guitar maniac. I love guitars. I've owned more guitars than I can remember in my lifetime. I've owned hundreds of guitars. I usually keep a stable of anywhere from 15 to 30 instruments consistently throughout my entire career. Right now, I'm the proud owner of 16 very, very nice guitars that are actually a fairly short cross section. If you've watched the other videos on this channel, you know that I am first and foremost a player of Boucher, a guitar company out of Quebec, Canada, made by Robin Boucher, and his handmade instruments are in my opinion, among the best guitars on the planet right now. It's very difficult, from coming from somebody who has. Because I spend all my time looking at guitars. I tour the world, or I did. And I go into music shops everywhere on the planet, and I pick up guitars. I go to trade shows. I go everywhere. And I'm always looking for that next best great guitar. And for the past 5 years, I frankly have not found anything better than the Bouchers. So with that in mind, I love the instrument, and I love the people who play the instrument, and I don't care if you're just beginning or have played for 50 years. I love you. You're an important part of the guitar world, and the guitar creates a massive community among its users and players, and also want to mention my online school, Master Music Method, which is a monthly subscription school, $15 a month, and you go on there and you can look at all kinds of lectures on not only guitar, but I also play fiddle, mandolin, banjo, bass. I'm a songwriter. I do all those things. I've done this for a living my whole life, 40 years now. Excuse me. And so it's my love of guitars that spawned this video that happened a few months ago, where I started to hear about these Alvarez guitars that were supposedly a bluegrass model guitar, and they were about $600-700. So I bought one, and I brought it home, and indeed it was a fine instrument. And I did a blind comparison on YouTube. I did a video where I blocked the camera off and played the Alvarez up against another guitar, and I had people write in to ask them which one of those guitars they thought was the Alvarez and which was the expensive name brand guitar. That experiment was amazing. First of all, it showed something that I was hoping I could show, was that you don't have to spend a fortune to get a great guitar. And that, my friends, is something that's growing even more important today because of the pandemic, and because people, strangely enough, have a bit more spending money because they're not going out to eat, they're not going to movies, they got nothing to spend their normally expendable cash on. The guitar world is exploding. People are buying guitars, they're signing up for lessons, the interest in the instrument is exploding right now again for the umpteenth time in the past 120 years, and so I love to see that. Now, the main reason I did this comparison video and why I'm going to do this one is for this reason. I Although I own name guitars and have owned name guitars, and I mean Martins, Gibsons, Taylors specifically, because those are the big three. Those are the only three guitars that are made at a level where they can absolutely just flood the entire market with their product. I've owned all those companies, and I've loved all those companies at different times in my career. But my major problem with them now is that while they still make fantastic guitars, their prices have gotten so out of control that it's embarrassing. You can't ask. They're building guitars, great guitars. Some of them are great. Some of them are just mediocre. But the mediocre ones don't have a less price tag on them. And the reason that there's mediocre ones in the batches is because they're mass produced. And so if you're going to buy a mass produced guitar, why wouldn't you spend a fifth of the money and get a really great guitar from a name that you might not be familiar with, right? And so I constantly, because I work with Boucher, and they are very expensive guitars because they're handmade. There's 7 or 8 guys in a shop that build every guitar. So you're looking at the same type of prices, actually less, a bit less, but like companies like Collings and these handmade companies, they're very expensive. So like a standard kind of a Boucher Dreadnought or OM guitar is going to cost you anywhere from $4,000 to $5,000 to $6,000. But they're worth it. They're handmade heirloom quality instruments, and you're getting what you pay for. And in our case, with this company, Boucher, they're actually making guitars that are cheaper than some of the American boutique companies. So you can actually get same quality for a little less money. But that being aside, okay, I run into questions all the time, obviously, from people who want to play what I'm playing. They're like, okay, yeah, you play a Boucher, I want a Boucher. And then they find out how much it is, and they go, oh my God, I can't afford that, or it's going to take me X number of years to save that much money. So then I say to them, well, why don't you buy this company? Because they make a fantastic guitar for $1,000 or $600 or whatever it might be. So recently, over the last few years, I've noticed a company that has made an interesting comeback. The company is called Recording Kings, and they are a group of people down in San Francisco who restarted the company and restarted the brand name and took the old recipes and built the guitars with modern technology. They're designed, built, and they send them to China. They're built en masse over there, come back. They're set up in San Francisco and Knoxville. Their attention to detail is incredible because they're going back and building recipes that were from the 30s and 40s, literally out of the Montgomery Ward catalog. And here in Canada, in Sears and Roebuck and Zellers and Kresge's and Kmart and all those department stores, you found these guitars in their catalogs in the 40s and 30s, 40s, and 50s. So they've made a comeback and brought this name and this company back into modern times, and they're building guitars, in my estimation, that are unbelievable for the money. I've played, 50 of them so far, and every one I wanted to buy. Some of these guitars are retailing for $300, and they're a guitar that you want and that you'd have in your studio or take on stage with you or whatever. They're just beautiful, retro. They look retro, they feel retro, they sound retro. And I love that. I'm a guitar player that I like something that looks old and looks like it's been through something, like it's not just a normal cookie cutter kind of approach. So they make, as well as making the actual, Montgomery Ward style guitars, and they're beautiful looking things too. They also delve into a high-end bracket of guitars, and of course, they have copied Martin. Martin, they have built a Martin guitar, a Martin style dreadnought that is named the same. It's a 28 style model, and I recently got one from them, and I have to tell you this, that I did receive this guitar for free. They gave me this guitar, but I don't think I'm going to pull any punches because of that, because they know I won't either. And not only that, I've actually ordered several other guitars that I'm paying for. So I didn't want to accept this for nothing. I offered to pay them for it because I think every company should be paid for what it's doing. But they insisted, and so they sent me this guitar for free. And it is what they call an RD 328. Now, the first thing about this guitar that sets it apart from most $1,000 guitars, the Alvarez that we looked at was a laminate guitar. It had laminate back and sides and a Sitka top. This guitar is solid rosewood back and sides and an Adirondack top. This guitar retails anywhere from $1,000 to $1,300. Adirondack. This is the same material that Boucher is using in their guitars. Robin has one of the largest supplies of Adirondack in the world. They're also offering torrefied Adirondack tops, which is a process that Robin Boucher actually invented. He was the first one to ever torrefy an Adirondack top. And so this guitar's material is way beyond its price. You have an Adirondack top, solid rosewood back and sides, and the wood in this guitar is glorious. The fit and finish is good. It's well finished and well done, but there's obviously, you can tell by looking at it closely that it is done in a big factory, and there's a few little specks here and there where dust got under the finish, and little tiny things like that don't bother me in the least. It's a heavy finish, as a lot of the Chinese guitars are done in a rather heavy finish, but it doesn't take away from the grain or the look of the guitar. It has a mahogany neck, a beautiful flame on it, and it's bound in what I like to call faux mammoth. It's the same. It's a white binding with a grain in it, as you might be able to see that there's actually a grain in that binding, and it's the same type of binding you find on a real Martin. And it's very well done, very well put together. The inside of it is gorgeous. The pick guard is beautiful. This pick guard also, it doesn't do it justice. This pick guard looks like a real tortoise guard. It's just gorgeous. And it has a really nice mid-profile V vintage kind of neck on it. And it's got that partial French curl headstock design that I love. And the beautiful open back Goto Waverly style tuners, butterbean tuners. And so there's your guitar, right? And I've had this thing for a few days, and I've let it sit, and I restrung it with brand new Elixir light gauge. Is all I use. I use light gauge and everything. I find it doesn't make any difference to me. It actually sound better for me when I'm playing them with light gauge. So, but don't let that throw you off if you're a bluegrasser. Trust me, it won't hurt it that it has light gauge on it. So there's your guitar for anywhere, depending on who you buy it from, right? Retailers give you deals sometimes. There's a sale or whatever. It's around $1,000 for this guitar, Canadian, right? So I had to do this because I had to make another comparison. And unfortunately, I'm going to be picking on the poor old Martin again because it's the only thing that I have that remotely has a chance against an instrument like the one I just showed you, and it's this guitar right here. This is a 15-year-old D28 Clarence White Memorial Martin, and it's one of the very first ones that they built. It's number 76 of 250. And of course, it's the same type of guitar. It's almost identical. It has East Indian rosewood back and sides. It's got the same type of faux mammoth binding, the same type of heel cap, the same type of tuners, except these are Wavers and those Waverlys and those are Grover. And it's got the same type of pick guard, which after 15 years has sunk and started to lift around the edges, but that's kind of normal. And this guitar has the enlarged sound hole, which this one does not. And I don't, as I've said earlier, I don't really put much credence in that. It doesn't really change the sound. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna play these two guitars for you, and I'm gonna let you listen to them blind. You're not gonna see which guitar I'm playing. And after I'm done that, I'm gonna post this up online, and I want you to tell me which guitar is the Martin. And I'm telling you, this exercise with the Alvarez was so fascinating because I hate to say this, but the Alvarez kicked the Martin's ass. Because that video's been up for months, weeks and months now, I think. More and more people keep coming on going, I think the first guitar was the Martin, but the first guitar was actually the Alvarez. And they were picking the Alvarez. And then I had people coming on saying, I own this Alvarez guitar, and it is indeed, for $700, as good as any Martin I've ever played. Now, do these guitars stand up over time? I have to make this admission. The Alvarez, after a certain amount of time, I started to notice some things about it. There was a little bit of like hairline crack occurred in the binding on the side of the neck where one of the frets came through the binding. There was a little crack that developed there. And then at the back of the guitar on the top on the binding, that looked like there was a little crack coming there. And so it's a $700 guitar. It's still together. It still sounds good. But there's a possibility it might not be as roadworthy as a Martin or even as this Recording King. So you're getting what you pay for in a lot of respects, but in some cases, and I believe like this is going to be one of them, because I already know what this thing sounds like, and you don't yet. This is a guitar that is not only going to stay together because it's just built so much better than the Alvarez, that this is a guitar you could buy while you save your money for a Boucher or a Martin or a vintage guitar of some kind that you want to purchase, and you would get you get your lifetime out of this instrument, the same as you would a Martin or an expensive guitar. And when you finally have enough money to buy your dream baby, whatever it might be, then you've got two great guitars. You can't say that for every company, and I think that Recording King is one of those companies that's presenting instruments that have a great longevity. And I'm excited about this thing because I've just barely got to use it, and I've strung it. I've been playing it, and it's just one of those guitars I want to keep playing. And there are other instruments that I'm trying to score. I'm trying to find the right ones that I want to buy. They're the same thing. You're going to see me play those a lot too because they're just so cool looking, and they sound just like nothing else. They sound like a old vintage guitar that you probably pay 10 grand for. And but they cost $400, and they stay together. I've seen these guitars after, a couple of years being played by people, no problem. So anyhow, let's do the test. I'm going to play both guitars. They're both tuned to standard. They're both strung with a brand new Elixir light gauge, and I'm going to play the same tune on both guitars. And then we're going to come back, and I'm going to let you tell me which guitar is the Martin, number 1 or number 2. And we're going to find out. And it's a great exercise, and I had so much fun doing this and talking to guitar players, right? My main objective, and I'll say this again before the end of the video, is I just want everyone to have a great instrument. And if you can afford a Martin and to pay the premium of the name on the headstock, which unfortunately is what's happening a lot of the time. If you can afford that, buy one. If you can't afford that, this is a great example of how you can spend your money and get a great guitar. And it's the same thing with Boucher. If you want to save money for a Boucher, here's your option. But don't buy guitars because of the name on the headstock. Buy the guitar because it's of a great quality, whether you're spending $1,000 for it or $10,000 for it. Get your money's worth. And that's why I always steer everybody to Boucher. If they have money to spend, that's the best guitar you can buy. And if you don't, well, I try to find these other companies that can help you out, and this is one of them. And we're going to compare these two instruments right now, and I'm really excited. This is going to be cool. So the first one was hilarious. I loved it. So here we go. Here's the comparison between the D28 Clarence White Martin and the RD. I got to memorize the number of this guitar. It's the RD328. Almost identical instrument in materials, both Adirondack tops, both solid rosewood. They're virtually identical. So we're going to see how they sound right now. Check this out. Okay, here is guitar number 1. Guitar number 1, there it was. And here is guitar number 2. Guitar number 2 right here. So, there you go. There's both guitars, and honestly, I just listened to that footage, and boy, it's a tough one. It's tough. It might even be tougher than the Alvarez one. Just to let you know some specifics, so you understand this is unbiased. The guitars are strung with the same kind of strings. I used actually a pick that I don't normally use, which I can't lay my hands on right now for some reason, but I used a purple Tortex, which is like a 1.46. It's a Delrin pick, so they're kind of bright. But the big thing I used on both guitars, obviously, that was an uncut segment. If you're looking at Shetland, the sheep there. Both of those guitars were cut with this microphone, which is an Aston Origin condenser. It's the best mic I've ever used in my life. And they were cut right where I'm sitting. So the guitar wasn't even facing the microphone. It was facing the camera here, sort of, where I'm looking at now. And it's about, I'd say, maybe 20 inches away. So that's how they were recorded. Just right in the room. There's no effects. There's no compression. There's no nothing. So that was a flat signal. And the first comparison video I did, was actually used the iPhone microphones, which are excellent. They're 24-bit stereo, so they sounded fantastic. They picked up the guitars really well. But on this one, I thought it'd be really cool to use a great studio mic on the guitars, and that's what you heard. So there you go. Number one, number two, which guitar was the Martin? That's the question. And I know from the last time that there's going to be a certain contingent of people that'll listen to that and go, that's the Martin. And they'll be right. Because they know. They own a Martin, or they've been around them all their lives, and they just know. But for the common everyday ear, like mine, I have a very open ear to guitars. I just like what sounds good. So, like I can listen to a guitar objectively and go, well, it does sound like a Martin, but it also sounds like a Gibson, and it also sounds like an 18, but it could be a 28. And so, but there's guys out there, I'm telling you, that are just massive. They know Martins, and they'll know which one was which. But I fooled a lot of people in the last video, which, again, is fascinating. So tell me which one, number one or number two, which one was the Martin? And put it in the comments below. If you enjoy these videos, hit subscribe. It's free. It's just a counting tool for YouTube to let them know how many people are watching me, so I can sell my ads to bigger companies, and Ford truck and Chevy truck, or whatever the hell you like to drive. Like, I don't care. And I don't even choose those things. I'm just kidding with you. But yeah, so, and come back and join us on String Theory Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. And tomorrow night, we're having a special Canada Day edition. Of course, I'm wearing all my U.S. swag. I was just in the States. I love America, and Americans have been very good to me over the years. And I'm sorry you guys are going through so much trouble down there now. And but it'll get better. We'll all get through it. So I'm wearing my Indiana shirt and my California hat, and that's where I was when the pandemic hit and we had to cancel the whole tour in front of us. I only had half of it done. So hopefully in the next few years I'll be able to come back down there and honor those dates and play those shows for the people that were coming up to see me. I appreciate them so much, and all of my support here on YouTube. And yeah, so there you go. Recording King versus Martin. Let's go. Let's see what happens. This is going to be so much fun. And I will release another video on Thursday. Thursday night, watch for the answer. I'll give it tonight and tomorrow night, most of Thursday. And I will come on Thursday night and I will divulge which guitar was which and what the score was. How many people thought which guitar was which. And it's a lot of fun. So the last one had, I think we counted, there was almost 200,000 people saw those videos. There was 90,000 people on one of them, and 80 some on the answer video, and they're still going on there. And I think this is a valid debate. I really do. I think that companies like Recording King, they give us an option, right? They give us an option. I think if you want a great guitar, you shouldn't have to pay $1 bazillion for it, and especially now in these times. And I want to just clarify something too. I said earlier that the only guitar I had that would stand a chance against the Recording King was this Martin. What I meant to say was the only non-Boucher, because you've seen those guitars too. They're just frightening. But the only name guitar, the only American name guitar that I own that would even compare to this is this Martin, which is a great guitar. I've had this guitar for 15 years, and a close friend of mine had it for several years, and brought it back to me, and it's a great instrument. But like I say, there's other great instruments out there that you might not have to pay as much money for as I did this. I paid $6,600 for this guitar when it was new. $6,600 Canadian. That's ridiculous. It really is. But I wanted the guitar, And a few years prior to that, I bought a brand new D45, a D45, $12,800 Canadian. I paid for that 45, and the bridge came off it in 6 months. It's a true story, and I take great care of my instruments, and I've never had any of them fail. And my 45, the bridge fell off. I had a very super high-end Taylor just over the last few years. The same thing. The bridge came off in 2 weeks. That's what I'm getting at, boys. I'm not picking on you because I love yous. Martin, Taylor, Gibson. Charge less and build like you used to build. Build the guitars that we're looking for now. Martin lovers are looking for guitars that were built in the 50s and 60s. You seldom ever see anybody fighting over a guitar built in 2005 because the quality's just not there anymore. Let's go back. Let's go back to the way it used to be where you built something that was meant to last and sounded great, and it was worth the huge price tag. That's what I'm hoping for. I know I'm just some guy in Nova Scotia. They don't give a shit what I say. But, it's a nice thought to think that those companies that Martin and Gibson, and especially Martin and Gibson, that built so many dreams for us musicians. We watched Hank Williams play his D18 and his D28. We watched Elvis play his custom-made Gibsons with his name on the neck. We watched Hank Snow play his custom Martin. We watched all the bluegrassers, that we love, Lester Flatt and all Tony Rice. I mean, those Martin guitars, they call those the Holy Grails because they are. They're once in a lifetime, one-off. Just the chances of those particular woods on that particular day with those particular luthiers building that guitar, and they built something that was supernatural. That's what I'd like to see us go back to. And I believe we can. And that's why I love Robin, because Robin does it like that. Robin still goes for the magic, right? And Recording King is doing the same thing at an affordable level. I'm not sure exactly how they're doing it, but they are doing it. And it's really nice to see a company that's building instruments at this level, at this price, that care about the magic. So listen to them. I'm talking and both of them are ringing. So that's great. Anyhow, I love you guys, and I love guitar. And that's all anybody really needs to know. And whoever has the most when they die wins. We'll see you next on Thursday night with the answer to the Recording King versus Martin question. I'm JP Cormier, and thanks for being here on my channel with me. And I appreciate your support. And stay safe and keep on picking.